Let's challenge something most people quietly believe, that intelligence is fixed, that some people are just born smart and the rest have to struggle. It sounds convincing. You see someone understand things quickly, solve problems easily, and you assume they're just different. But that belief is incomplete. Because intelligence, what we often call being smart, is not a fixed trait. It's a system that can be trained. And the people we call geniuses are not just thinking better, they are training their minds differently. The real misunderstanding about IQ. IQ is often treated like a permanent score, something you're given and stuck with. But modern research shows something more useful. While certain cognitive limits exist, your effective intelligence, how well you think, learn, and solve problems, can improve significantly. Not by forcing your brain harder, but by training how it operates. Geniuses don't rely on raw intelligence. They build mental systems that make thinking easier. Shift 1. They train clarity, not just knowledge. Most people try to become smarter by learning more. More facts, more information, more content. But more information doesn't automatically create understanding. Geniuses focus on clarity. They take one idea and ask, what does this actually mean? For example, instead of saying, I understand this topic, they break it down. Can I explain it simply? Can I connect it to something I already know? Can I see where it applies? This process strengthens neural connections because the brain remembers structured meaning, not scattered facts. Clarity makes thinking faster, not because the brain is faster, but because it's less confused. Shift 2. They slow down at the right time. There's a hidden pattern in how strong thinkers work. They don't rush through everything. They slow down strategically. When something is complex, unclear, or important, they pause. They sit with the problem longer than most people would. Not because they're stuck, but because they're allowing deeper processing. Your brain doesn't understand difficult ideas instantly. It builds understanding in layers. Rushing skips those layers. Slowing down builds them. That's why someone can read the same material as you and understand it far more deeply. They didn't read more. They processed differently. Shift 3. They struggle on purpose. Most people avoid mental struggle. If something feels hard, they assume, I'm not good at this. Geniuses see it differently. They expect difficulty, because struggle is not a sign of low intelligence. It's a sign that the brain is being stretched. When you try to solve something without immediate success, your brain starts forming new connections. This is how learning physically happens. Avoiding difficulty keeps your thinking at the same level. Leaning into it expands it. Geniuses don't enjoy confusion, but they don't run from it either. Shift 4. They build thinking patterns. Strong thinkers don't approach every problem from scratch. They develop patterns, ways of thinking that repeat across different situations. For example, breaking problems into smaller parts, looking for cause and effect, comparing similarities and differences, testing simple assumptions first. These patterns reduce mental effort. Instead of asking, how do I solve this? They ask, what type of problem is this? And once the brain recognizes the pattern, solutions come faster. This is why experience often looks like intelligence. It's not just knowledge, it's pattern recognition. Shift 5. They reflect more than they consume.
Most people spend more time taking in information than thinking about it. Videos, notes, explanations. But without reflection, information fades quickly. Geniuses do something different. They pause after learning and ask, what did I just understand? What is still unclear? How would I explain this from memory? This reflection strengthens memory and deepens understanding because the brain becomes active, not just receiving, but organizing. Learning becomes more efficient, not because they study longer, but because they think more. Shift 6. They separate identity from performance. This is subtle but powerful. Many students attach their identity to their performance. If they struggle, they think, I'm not smart. Geniuses don't do this. They separate the two. A mistake is just feedback. Confusion is just a stage. Slow progress is just part of the process. This keeps their mind open because the moment you protect your identity, you stop taking risks. And without risk, thinking doesn't grow. Why this changes everything. When you combine these shifts, clarity over memorization, depth over speed, struggle instead of avoidance, patterns instead of randomness, reflection instead of constant input, something changes. Thinking becomes more controlled, learning becomes more stable, and intelligence stops feeling fixed. Final thought. Geniuses are not operating with a completely different brain. They are operating with trained habits of thought, and those habits are learnable. You don't need to suddenly become smarter. You need to start thinking differently. Slow down where it matters, struggle when it's necessary, clarify what you learn, reflect on what you understand. Over time, your thinking sharpens, not dramatically, but steadily. And that steady improvement is what people eventually call intelligence.